start to come. So I think let's just start by like how people are feeling and their expectations, anything that they have observed over their last week, basically the week 0, and then the following week, which we have some sessions as well as also like our communication. So anything that you can report about how you feel, what you're expecting, what you noticed, what you observed, would be, and what you are looking for. I think that would be just good. So you can just, as usual, you can raise your hand or also comment. Raising your hand and speaking would be highly recommended and appreciated, so that we have like a more lively session. So yep, so who's gonna start? Because sometimes we also just randomly pick people, and I think Rodas will start doing, or Abdul Hamid will start doing in times to come. But for today, just let's make it very much natural. And anyone can feel free also to speak in Amharic as well. So just a medium of communication, English, no good. I think we are a lot more interested in making this thing more lively than only just so. Yeah, any ቋንቋ is fine. Or maybe just for ice breaking, we can also just randomly call names. Okay, Johannes.
Okay, thank you so much for having me. So today, Rodas was asking us before what we were feeling, to rate from 1 to 10. How are we feeling? And I said 10. How was the question was, how was your energy from 1 to 10? And I said 10. So I'm really excited for what is to come, and I'm really excited to see what kind of projects we'll dive into, and I'm really looking forward to invest my time and everything that is expected to the education, and I'm really feeling good and excited about what is to come. Thank you.
Excellent, wonderful, very energetic, Johannes. Thank you for energizing us, And yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, good to hear that.
Okay,
Anyone else? Mr.
Okay, hello everyone again. So I'm excited to be here, to be accepted in this community. So week 0 has a, well, it has given me a high expectation for this program. So I know we did only some project, and it was just a 3-day challenge, but if the entrance assessment is like this, we might expect a lot of things on this program across the 3 months. So I'm very excited for that as well.
Okay, excellent. I think that's good. So I know that you guys had already, kind of expressed the feelings and the energy level with Rodas. That's great. I just want to start it with that. And also I was just waiting for the challenge document to be shared, and it seems now it's shared. So that's good. So that means you can open it and you are probably seeing the challenge document. One thing that I would say about the design of the current challenge, like basically the current training, TRP1, is that we don't know as much what is good, right? So it is a very high evolving, fast evolving. We know we are, we are very much like aligned with the world. We basically monitor and understand what's happening in big labs, small labs, and thinkers as well. So which means like a lot more of the things are just being, uncovered, and you're just joining that very fast, rapid, and there isn't structure. It's not like there isn't, let's say, a textbook on what you're going to be doing. There's only one consensus that the world has shifted. We will not do what we have been doing a year ago, and things will be just our way in any way. So we know that one, and we take that one, and then we basically reflect. So some of the, like basically all the projects you'll be doing, we'll be doing it with you. We will not give you a project that we know. And that mentality is important, that you're not asked, you're basically a coworker with and us designing some of these things, relevant things, understanding and studying the industry, what is one thing, what the industry wants, and then evolve by that speed. So which means a lot of the things you will figure it out, that it lacks maybe the rigor in terms of like giving you detailed instructions. We make sure that the ideas we give you, the projects we design, have sufficient context, and that that when you do them, you learn a lot more, and the ones that we want you to learn. I think we always make sure that, but the actual instructions you should help enrich it as we go. And so I think that's very important, because if you forget that, sometimes you might really, if you are expecting the usual, there's a challenge, there's a kind of clear instructions, and you're trying to do them, you might struggle with that mentality. So I will keep repeating it, but ensure, make sure that you understand that this is really, you are a coworker, we have an idea, and then we kind of work it together. And so we didn't even have time sometimes to implement them or attempt them. And the tutorials are supposed to guide you based on our other experiences. So it might not directly relate also to the actual project, okay? So what that means is that you have to ask, you have to be very, kind of like consider yourself as a colleague, not as a trainee, and really make sure to contribute as much as possible. The success of the project or the success of even the entire program depends on your contribution, because you are a coworker, you're not just a trainee we provide. So I think if that kind of mentality is slightly strange, ask it. Let's discuss it, and it's important that is understood across the whole by everyone, right? So because then you will have a different mentality when you join any session, when you are in a Slack, you consider yourself as part of this, really trying to figure out to become the best in the world, learning all that we can. Okay, with the smallest resources we have compared to the world. And that I want to just overemphasize with that. So I'm going to share the challenge document. So maybe just I will share actually the tab itself, or maybe the window. Okay, hopefully, are you seeing my screen? Do you see my screen? Okay, it's the right screen. That's good. Okay, so what I just said, really just when you look at the challenge, you will know what it means. In the week 1, we are asking you to basically clone or fork one of the VS Code ID extension, and we want you to basically upgrade it for one of the most evolving understanding, which is intent code traceability. So as you always know, or as you have just now kind of understand, with the agents being so good, whether it's a background agents, multiple agents doing it, whether one agent doing it, whether live coding, or all of them, they have one thing common, that the code itself is not written by you. The code is written by the agents with the help of LLM. And what the agent is doing is transferring your intent and the kind of the business objectives you want to solve. It takes that one, and then the agent basically translates that one into a particular code, in a particular language. And the thing is, the code in principle, if you have all the intents like formally and systematically captured, then that intent can be now translated basically and implemented by different agents with different programming languages. So the code itself is basically now a side product, a byproduct, which is the agent's work is, to finally produce a code which the computers understand. But your intent is what actually the agent, as an input to the agent, is your intent in any context you give it along it. And right now, there isn't any system. There are some attempts like by, different extensions, as well as also different forks of the VS Code, like anti-gravity, there are, and also Kilo, all of those types, there are kind of attempts that is being done. Trying to, for example, anti-gravity became really the most, let's say, in my opinion, good in terms of introducing an agent manager, and that agent manager has artifacts. By artifacts, it means like whatever you describe, it kind of constantly builds a knowledge base for that code base, and then the agent learns a lot more about it from that. But still, it doesn't directly, formally say what's your intent and how does that intent correlate to the code that's produced. There's no structured way of capturing that. Okay, and you're like like what we are asking you in this challenge is to get an attempt of that. Now, when you get the attempt of that, the project is very complex, and the project can be very hard. But the point isn't that. The point is you now thinking. As I said, in the past, if we were to write every line of code, this would have been just a 6 months or a 1 year project. But right now, you're forking. You have a lot of context. You have the AI. Basically the Chat GPTs, the Geminis, and the cloud to help you really up to speed, and then all different types of agents to write the code for you. So it's much more you are kind of acting like an architect or a manager or an orchestrator of different silicon workers. So we are training you to be more of a manager type than an actual worker type. In the past, the projects we gave you were a lot more to make you more a worker, so that a worker is evaluated on the work that they produced in a sense. So everyone is a worker in that sense. A manager is also a worker, but like the manager is expected to will be measured. A managerial work is expected on how the manager manages, not on what actually they do in terms of the work, that the final work that's expected. If it's about manufacturing an iPhone, a worker is kind of evaluated on how they do each component and the quality of it, while a manager is at how they manage to really amplify the work of these all workers, type them, give them structure such that they really do reliable and repeatable work, right? So I'm going to stop there because this is a very important, and I want you to ask some questions if something is not clear, because this is just that alignment will be useful. So you can raise hands if you have any questions there. And even you can just say, how do you feel about it? Just, you can actually, yeah. Ones. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a bit worried about the amount of tokens, the amount of context window that we will be using if we are going to just only act as a manager.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Very good question. And this is something of that also worries us a lot. And so the only thing we can say is that even if you don't complete the project, you will learn a lot. But as much as possible, using Gemini, the chat windows, try to get your ideas and architectures and kind of evaluations, probably instead of just your ID only, use as much of the tokens that are available to you via the chat GPT, the kind of the chatbots, the agents in the chatbots. And yeah, so I agree. It's going to be like, if in the ideal world, you want to have like ultra subscriptions, or even that's not sufficient, maybe just work with, in Cursor with, as part of Cursor team or cloud team, and then kind of burn as much as possible. But we know we can't. So the only thing I can tell you right now is that at this point, we know the challenge, but we don't want to give you a toy problem just knowing, because the challenge is like tokens. So the only thing we just say is like, I'm sure as a community we'll figure it out how to leverage all resources to basically get over it. I know that that's not an answer that you're looking for. From week 4, we will hopefully be able to provide a more, at least a pro type of subscription. But for the next 4 weeks, at least, we have to figure it out as a community, leveraging every other resource, whether it's DeepSeek's chats, K-Wayne's chats, ChatGPT's chats, Gemini's chats, Claude's chats. Because I mean, in Gemini, you can actually upload the entire package, the entire, let's say, if it is you're doing client, the client zip folder, and of course it probably has a limitation, maybe 100 files that it processes, but you'll at least know you can actually get something on the chats than on the ID, which is burning your very limited kind of tokens. Yeah, so very well, very important question. We'll explore it. Hopefully we'll still be able to do something interesting with what we have. Yeah, a good question. Any other question? Any other concern, points, clarity? Okay, so assuming there are none, please just raise hands if you want to ask at any time. Taddasa?
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible.
Right. So since the project is very challenging, can we extend the deadline so that we can work on Saturday and Sunday as well?
I think we want you to rest on Sunday. And so, as I said, we will get more challenging and more interesting problems as we go on. So this is not the first time you will encounter such complex problems. But the point isn't to really exhaust everything we have. We'll do, it's a time capped. That means like until Saturday, we'll do everything we can, and then we're done, right? Just that way, this is our 10 Academies, maybe like the secret sauce. A project in its own is not as important. The point is how you grasp, how you kind of bound yourself, how you time yourself. Because in real life, just a project is like that. It just basically has an end time. Beyond that, its business return value diminishes. So, and the most important part for us is that you rest on Sunday so that on Monday you get fresh. So we really encourage, you plan Sunday to completely become free, do something else that's not what you're doing between Monday and Saturday. So well-intentioned, we know it, but we really, at least one day a week, you have to be fully free and take a break to not overdrive. Hopefully that is, you will know what we mean. It just gets intense, and it's important that Sunday is the most important day. Like a gym, the most important days is not just the gym days, it's actually the days you rest. So it's very similar in mind as well. So yeah, I know that you meant it well-intentioned, but let's just have that mentality, and then on Saturday, end of Saturday, it ends. So submit, on that. Okay. Anything? Yeah, Yosef?
Okay. I just want to ask, are the projects similar to this first week challenge, like working on as a manager or office manager? The projects are just similar, or are the projects intention like this week one challenge, or are they different from this week one challenge?
Yeah, I think in some way they're all similar. It's you are getting prepared for the shifted work style. So that means a programmer, will learn syntaxes and anything as they need, but they're not the main. Just like a manager sometimes assists something. You have to know to really manage something. But the real work is done by agents and AI, and then you are basically becoming super manager, like super managers. Some good managers, you have seen them, they can produce Apple like Apple products in a at scale, while the number of people are small. And the same is, some of the good managers, like in Anthropic, meant Anthropic with only about 4,000 people is able to really compete and become more like a $500 million company. So, and as you will notice, and the reading materials that we provide, some of their team members were able to manage code 100% with agents. So they don't actually code anything, even if they are the top like CTO types and doing all that. They basically achieved 100% like delegation. That's an achievement. And so we are trying as much as possible with the right management techniques, in this case, management for AI agents, that you will be able to really do something similar and achieve high quality work with 100% delegation. What that enables you is that you now can hire more agents and do more work, and which is basically amplifies your work. So yes, you are, but as we will do also whatever possible in between, until getting there. So right now, if your delegation level is 70% or 60%, we want to increase that with efficiency. You can delegate with AI without really having any responsibility, but the point isn't that. The point is really proper delegation, such that the business value is achieved, and the delegation the agents actually do, because you have set up a proper environment, and you are a good manager. They deliver on time, they deliver accurately, and the business value is achieved at a high percentage. Yeah. Hopefully that's clear. If not, please ask again. And I really, really want people just to ask, because there is a lot of discussions here. So I will continue, but feel free to raise your hand at any time so that I am able to provide clarity. So the very key problem that we are solving is correlating or tracking correlation between the lines of code that is being written by agents and the intent you specified in a different format to the agent. So the why, which is the intent, and the structural identity, which is normally described by the abstract syntax tree, normally abbreviated as AST, is what you want to capture, like what you are creating, a feature in the VS Code extension agent is creating, allowing a hook to be able to deliver that. So, and to see what it meant is to illustrate, I think the text already makes it very clear. If the AI, the agent modify 50 files to do one intent, let's say to refactor an authentication middleware, then from a Git perspective, the current Git, it just sees 50 files, unrelated text diffs that happens. It does not know why they are modified. It just documents only, what has been changed. And then basically Git is very faithful and very good. It then just basically almost always ensures that at any time when you are then committing with your commit, it attaches for it, okay, the 50 files with your commit message associated. But really, it doesn't capture sufficiently why and how and what went in between, what plan, what other things, was there like was there a previous intent that had done something? It doesn't correlate that semantically, right? So it's all edits are just captured by, let's say, correlated only via like commits and the commit message, and they are not. And Git blames, there's also just, you can blame some things, just say like this was done by AI, this was done by something, but that's not sufficient, because that's not really, Git was not designed to actually for the AI era. It was designed for basically the people coding era, and its main goal was capturing differences and committing them and faithfully rolling back. So this is what's then basically now, as the world evolves into basically intent becomes the most important thing. So from technical debt, we now go into trust or cognitive debt, which you will read and understand what it means more. Then the real essential elements is capturing and committing and basically versioning the intents and the associated. So it's not only sufficient. So GitHub spec is kind of doing exactly that. But it lacks one other thing. It's correlating with actually what is changed. So the old and the new. So GitHub spec is helping you to version your intent, and Git, the usual Git, is allowing you to version your code, but there isn't a formal structure that does the kind of the correlation between them and versioning that in a very systematic manner. And your work is going to be doing exactly that. And then you do it with a very known method. So we don't want it to be probabilistic, that one. We want it to be deterministic. And to be deterministic and automatic, you want to do this at using, like, let's say, a hook concept. So basically, you have a pre-hook and a post-hook that does basically correlate this and ensure like you faithfully record that. And that will become much more clear as you go. And while you do this, the recurrent team you will start seeing is that we want you to start thinking like not someone, a developer, a junior developer in Ethiopia, but we want you to really think and become a member of that master thinkers in this era. And who are the master thinkers? People that actually have been developing this now and leading the world. And one of that person is Boris Cherny, who is Anthropic's, basically like the creator of Cloud Code. And he does things like, as I said, he has achieved 100% kind of automation with agents. And we want you to understand what he's doing, how he is thinking, what people are saying about, his advices, what he's advising. So you have to learn and understand to start thinking like him, or like him means, in the future, hopefully you will be even better than him. But the point is to try to really understand, because he has access, he has resources, he has everything. And so basically having a kind of a person to model after the kind of master thinking is important. And others are like the Cursor team creators, and also the creators of the, many of the extensions you are going to be working with, and then the Codex and Andrew Karpati as well, Andre, and all of those people, we want you to know them so that you can follow and understand how they are thinking, what they are doing, so that you have like that, just you think like the masters. That's always just so that's one. And another one is we want you to understand the new evolving concepts that are necessary for this project. So and everything, even the master thinking sense, it's project, and every project, the kind of the thinkers, what would Boris would think that way, you start really understanding, because how he does what he does, what he tweets and what he actually advises, and basically the best practices that are being emerging and patterns that are emerging. In terms of also software development, thought patterns is one of the places that are very good. They are thinking about, they were the creators of also, the Agile Manifesto and all that. So this is another type of pattern that you have to understand in software, in the new AI software development. And those are the vocabularies to understand, and also the kind of the concepts. And the cognitive depth is just basically, nowadays, what's really becoming a challenge is when knowledge loses its thickness, because humans are skimming AI output and they're not deeply understanding it. And when that happens, that they specify their intent, but they're not verifying. So when those two, whether their intent was implemented or not, when there is a gap, that's called the cognitive debt, because AI generates a lot and you don't have that much amount of time to actually, basically understand and verify. And that technical debt was like, if technical debt was just the element that you don't have time to actually do the right thing, like the right architecture, the right schema. You actually then do fast, but still you were writing. It's just that you didn't have time to be very, very thoughtful. Here, it's now the AI is doing it, but you don't have actually time to verify even whether your intent and what you told actually was implemented by the agent. So that's called the cognitive debt. And then that basically translates into a technique and trust debt, the gap between the system produces and what we can verify. So basically, the amount of things that you verified are so small that you will start accumulating trust debt. Because at any time, if something goes wrong, like, yeah, the agent did it. like you didn't really verify. So then, it's about trusting the agent, and the agent, how much they are trustable is that's measured by the trust rate. So I think that's the kind of another component that you have to understand. And so this is basically then the goal. I think I explicitly mentioned what's the goal is, that you will not build a chatbot, you will not start from scratch. And also, I think throughout the training, you will see the terminology called forward deployed engineers. This is basically the Palantir model that's basically becomes now the top, that's a role type of, way of thinking your role. And FDs normally for any company, bigger companies, what they do is they basically go into the clients and then help the client implement what basically the provider of any software or any software as a platform to make to make that product work, or product or service work for the client, because the client may have a messy other things, and the FDs basically go and solve that. And that means most of the FDs just start from something that's already there and make it work for the particular part. So in this case, exactly because of the you are a lot more trained for FD, you're not just, even if you do from scratch, it's more to really practice, but a lot more of it's like you will start building on top of existing something. So in this case, you will start on top of Ru code or Klein. Ru is basically a fork of Klein and becomes sophisticated. So Klein, you can choose one of them, or a derivative. Kilo is another fork of Ru. So you can choose one of them and then build. These are open source extensions for VS Code. So you can start working and take that and then implement the hook in one of what your favorite. So that means the entire handling of creating the extension and stuff, it's done already by the fork. So you're just only adding extensions, understanding the extension, and then adding features on that extension. Okay, so that's what you're building is going to be a deterministic hook system that enforces context, so injects high-level architectural constraints via sidecar files or data structure. That basically means that anytime that a person using that extension specifies something, then it's translated into intent. Intents are captured accordingly, and then that intent is kind of now is injected into the context window. And then the agent with the LLM would generate code, and basically whatever needs to be written to a file materialized, and that materialization, as it is also written, it then is tracked in this intent code or AST correlation. And we will use one specific cursor introduced agent trace kind of architecture, so, or like a schema. And then basically that's what the trace intent, and then you then have that everything along with this. What happens is that you are actually, this is enabling you, the post and pre hook allows you to also generate basically up-to-date documentation live. So that means you don't really go and produce documentation anytime. Documentations are also evolving together, because you are almost, this is a byproduct. The up-to-date documentation for any code becomes basically the byproduct of your agent. So those are the three key areas of your hook system you're going to be implementing. And I have created, I've added a number of references that already a lot of people are working. There's an industry. If you remember your reading material before, which was the A16Z article, which was about all of the new software development stack, that there was one actually, it's called kind of AI native Git. So there is a lot more about that. There's a number of ways people are attempting. One is basically like your entire trace of chats to build something, just like we did on week, basically on week 0, we ask you to put all of your chat history in a Git file, in a Git for a repository. There are also others like the prior art. This is entire CLI or custard seed. They kind of allow you to basically share like all your chats from Cloud Code and stuff like that. So I think this allows you to really, especially the context engineering is important, how context engineering in the AI era works, and the AI version concepts like AI native Git AI project, and all of them will allow you, and then also the basically the playbook from Cloud, and then on cognitive dates, some readings, and then also the most other important things that you have to actually understand and build is on how you formalize intent. So there's a Git spec, but there's more to it than actually it seems. So you have to talk and you have to think and understand the how you formalize intents to capture, like to create lineage and tracing for that. Yeah. So Abdul Hamid. Yeah. Abdul Hamid, do you have any
Yes.
question?
Yeah, I have one question
Yeah.
regarding to storing our prompt into file, because as you said, we may had an issue with the token, right? If I'm using the
Yeah.
agent. So instead of that, we are going to use some chats, for example, Gemini, GPT, Grok. So which means that the history will be on remote, right? So are we going to copy that one, because we can't write any script because it's not connected with our VS Code or something?
Yeah. Very, very good question, but I will, because it's definitely a question for many people. So there are two things here. One is you're building the hook system that is basically using all the kind of like chat GPTs, whatever you want. What we are asking is that the hook system, once implemented, anyone who has access will basically be able, when they use your extension, your updated extension, will have this thing captured. But when to build the hook system where you don't have that hook that will capture it. So in Gemini, ChatGPT, you go and you're trying to build this hook system. So it's fine, that you don't have the chat history. But once you build it and you give me that extension and I'm using it, then that hook system will start capturing everything. So it only like the captures and the versioning is the hook system. So you're creating, one is you use AI to create the system, the other one is the system then starts kind of tracking your usage. So the two are separate. Does that make sense? Because I want to make sure that the two are, you see it differently. One is building the hook system, which is you can build it anywhere, and even by hand you could have built it. And then how the hook system captures and lineage things. That's different. That's when you use the hook itself, the extension itself. Does that make clear?
I think I got your idea. So which means we can build as we want, but after we build the system, it should be pipelined with the login system, right?
Yeah. So for example, after you build it, you want to test it. When you test it with even the smallest token you have, you basically will be, the hook will basically captures, and that's one of the your submissions. We will see it later. What you will submit is, wherever after you build it, that you demonstrate that your now hook captures exactly what we want.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, good. But it was a good question, because I think these are type of questions that might confuse, because there's two things. One is you're building a builder, right? So that really is confusing, and it's important such questions arise and make sure that they are clear, that you're building a builder. So that's important. Okay. So I think this then, these references will give you a more alignment, as I say, the mental picture of how people in the very sophisticated labs, big, small LLM labs and other labs are thinking on the new software development, and having that mentality and understanding that from scratch and contributing to it is what our goal is, that you will become, globally leader in the space over time. And that's very important. That's just an ambition we have, right? So, okay. So the architecture specification. So this is basically, if you choose Roo is just a forked version and an updated version of Klein. You can also just choose actually another versions like that. In principle, for example, Kilo is another one, which is a fork of Roo itself. It's a best of Roo and Klein. So you can choose, but we recommend just one of Roo, just so that it's clarity, right? So And when people are talking, then it's clear as well what they're doing. But their structure isn't that different. Their features are different between kilo, row, and client, but the actual structure might be very similar. So the hook engine and middleware, and you have to know just at the higher architectural level, as you understand that extension, you will see the wave view, the extension host, and the hook engine. You know, the wave view, basically you are hacking into the existing feature, and basically VS Code has its own already. The extension uses the VS Code logic of displaying messages and kind of asking interaction with the user, and every other thing is handled by the logic of the basically the backend. So it's a Node.js type like backend that's handling all of the API polling and all sorts of things that needs to be handled, the agent. So you have to understand the agent, how they build it. So before you start even doing anything, you will understand, but you basically will have to understand that, okay, you know, here is a web view component, and here is also my extension host logic, which means in this case, the client, as well as also the VS Code. And then the hook engine is also that what you're going to be writing and developing and integrating with these two, the host and the wave view host as well. So I think that just it becomes clear as you see it. And to be able to do this, and the important concept, there are a lot of important concepts, and one of the important concepts is that, so a user just says something, right? Refactor the authentication model, middleware, or something. Like, let's say, just write a test units thing. Now, this is basically the intent of the user, but there must be already a pre-existing intents that are maybe in GitHub spec kit. And then so the agent, of course, takes this one, and with all the context that is provided before even, so you know, it's called sometimes like this one is called actually the context paradox, like basically the intent paradox, you can call it. You want to identify the intent, but to identify the intent, first the agent must know what intent it is. And so where do you introduce the pre-hook? So if you introduce the pre-hook before the agent has a chance to see and plan, what happens is that you basically get a very confusion, because then you're going to create another agent separately. So what we are going to be building for this case is that we're going to be building a two-stage state machine, which is first is the request, the user comes in, and then the reasoning intercept. This is the handshake between the user intent and then the agent. And the agent analyzes the request and identifies an intent ID. So you allow, by just using the prompt, the system prompts, and the rules in your, you know, basically Cloud or agents.md, you kind of give it a way to identify always, just like you say, do this always. You kind of actually guide it through the rules and through the skills, if you want to be complex as well, to actually identify an intent ID. So that means we should have a pre-defined intents, as well as also the intents of the user, and correlates from actually what we call active intents. And then, so once that is the case, then we have to force always, once it identifies through the system prompt again or through the rule, we have to actually a mandate, almost always the agent must call a mandatory kind of a tool, and that tool could be select active intent. Now that select active intent, the LLM, just like the agent, like anything else, it will call many other things, including, you know, file reading, this and that. And then it's only at that point, at whenever the select intent, active intent tool is called, before the tool actually is processing, that's where we will introduce the pre-hook intercept. Then there, okay, now we have, you know, it gave us an intent ID plus some context. And then with that, we have to then be able to understand, okay, now this is our time to be able to correlate what kind of full context that we will provide to the LLM about the existing intent, the evolution of the intents before and everything. So we call it that, let's call it the intent layer, context layer. So that's why you have to understand about context layers. But we will create this another concept called context layer, where we introduce, the pre-hook introduces, you know, the essential ingredients for like at that level, and it provides. So basically, you know, if you follow this logic, Then the pre-hook intercepts this call, it poses the execution loop, and then the hook queries the data model, which is, I will just explain. And then to select intents, constraints, related files, and recent history for identified intent IDs. And then basically the hook injects this deep context into the intermediate prompt and basically resumes execution. So the agent doesn't really see. The agent the agent calls the tool, but at that point the pre-hook just basically is called and injects this context. And then at state 3, basically the contextualize the agent now, it just has now for itself, it's just basically the tool added something, and whatever is added, now the context has been changed, but it doesn't care, the agent. And then the agent now takes this one with the LLM, it processes, and then it basically, of course, an effect, so that it will have now an effect, which means the LLM instructs it to call the write file parts to actually materialize some code change. Again, at the write file is where you have the post hook intercept. So the post hook now, just before the write, or that you now have like the LLM has finished, the agent is kind of writing and modifying now file. At that part, you analyze the post hook intercepts this, calculates the content hash, what has changed, how the kind of the intent changed the code, and whether there was an actually evolution in the intent, what type of evolution, was it a refinement, whatever that was predefined by pre-hook, and then basically writes to these artifacts, which is basically the tracker, what we will come to it. Then it will just basically materialize the change. That's where when we say we are tracking now, basically using our hook system, for the user, there's no change. For the agent, there is no change. But through the hooks that are being called, we're basically tracking the correlations and updating anything. And when a code changes, also we know the intent, we know why it's changed, we know everything, the context, and then we update also the relevant, let's say, documentations as part of that concept. So I think that really is just a very execution flow that I want you to understand and expand and understand. Okay. So in the data model, this is the basic. Again, when you read it, this is the sidecar storage pattern. So basically means just a separate storage pattern, and these files are machine managed. So you don't actually, no one by hand creates them. They're actually driven by your a priori, like how intents are captured. So you will have like a system this is not a concept, but also during the kind of the edits, this is being edited, like the files in this folder are being written by your hook implementers. Okay. And for that, currently we are suggesting simply a YAML and JSON, but in principle, you can actually implement with SQLite or ZVec, which is a very new, fast vector database and memory that's really recommended as well. But choose whatever that is suitable according to your complexity, and all are fine. Okay. So the active intents are basically, now that we assume you have, GitHub spec and all that, so there must be a way that you define what is called active intents. And active intents are basically it manages for every, it's more like you can call them tasks, task like tickets in some way, but they are actually defined via a kind of intent. And I have highlighted a few actually, maybe even here down, maybe not here, like maybe just on the bottom here, I have highlighted a few of thinkings and papers and kind of current implementations that people are trying to standardize this part, because this is a very kind of important, even if you don't have to worry, but it's an important part of how you define the schema, such that this is the schema is kind of generalizable, is important. So this is basically what you're doing, is that given an intent, it's ID'd and it has its own kind of let's say names and status. But the most important part is that it must own some scope, and it must also have some constraints, and it must have also acceptance criteria. That's why, as you can see, it looks like intent, and this is replacing for agents the type of say tickets for them, because every ticket, every intent in a pre-AI software development is defined by human captured, let's say Scrum masters or product owners, kind of defined intents. So it's kind of a proxy to that. Another one is the agent trace. This is Cursor recently released basically as like implementation independent schema for how to capture that. And so that's basically the purpose is that as you evolve, so this is how you capture intent, but as to capture like who affects what and where and all of that. So this is kind of the agent trace. JSON, for example, will have this kind of schema, the Git basically hash and the files that are associated to this basically trace. So that means to this modification in a certain, in this way, basically this is basically your schema for that, for keeping basically the evolution. So this is the trace in that sense. And then other one is intent map. So this is basically a continuous kind of, let's say, which intent, because as files are moving, line numbers, whatever, really are not useful because just things are very much fluid, the code base. So you're not going to be hashing and things via the file, but actually AST, this abstract syntax tree, is actually really an abstract context of your code. The hashes is related to that. The content hash is actually not via file, but actually this AST. And so because of that, you must now, because you're not doing by file, but to relate between the file actually humans know and the intent, you will have an intent map that basically will give you the spatial map of that, which files actually correlate. Even if the hashes and the lineages are done by AST, this one kind of gives you a map with basically the human-aware file systems. And a lot of the lessons, the hook also should be able to update your rules based on, let's say, validations and how things are working. So that's why, just like in the spirit of, Boris, the kind of the cloud, their MD or the agent is also a shared concept, a shared place where when multiple agents do stuff, when that the hook is updating it as well, everybody is updating this, common wisdom and knowledge. So this is called the shared brain concept. Okay. So this is really just basically the data model and the basically the architecture, but just a more detailed implementation curriculum would be, the first part is, of course, I think you have to read this one. As I said, this is just a guide, an indicatory guide. You could be, depending on your sophistication, you should be able to implement and improve over this as well. But the very simple phases for this project would be, you have to understand the extension. So you really have to learn about how the extension works, how the agent in that extension works, using AI again to understand. So for that, you can use ChatGPT, you can use, all of that, understand and take note of the structure of the code base and all of that before, otherwise you basically will not know what to do. So that's what's called the archaeological dig, which is basically, understand the extension and its features and components where things are done. Trace the tool loop, how the agent calls, which framework it's using and how it's doing, which prompts it's using, all of that, what forces it to call a tool, what type of tool the agent actually has. It supports also MCP tools, but it has also internal tools. So it's kind of trace the kind of the tool loop, the different tools it has implemented. And then exactly locate the prompt builder, so that, because everything is ultimately, when it's sent, even if we call it context, ultimately it becomes a prompt. So it's kind of that building, that one is important. And all of your understanding, capture it and as a note, because later we ask you to actually submit a more structured version of that as well. Sorry. So once you have that, once you have a clear understanding, you start really, because you already also planned the data model and the architecture for your hook. Now it's a time to kind of understand and define the phase one, basically the reasoning loop implementation, define the tool. As we said, the pre-hook will be hooked as just the selective active intent tool that you're going to be creating. And then you will basically start from that. You will write codes that will just load the right context given let's say an ID and some context passed to it. And then you also because you have identified now where prompts are engineered, you kind of actually add or edit as well the prompt engineering, and then also then, you know, fully with the prompt engineer, you know, with the prompt engineering you have now modified with the loaded context, you now basically inject that into the as a return from this tool for the basically the for the agent's context. And basically, if something, for example, the intent ID or something, the context passed is not, the gatekeeper basically allows, if really you can't match or do stuff, then it should block and verify, you know, ask the user or kind of do stuff. You know, that's the gatekeeper. So that's the security layer that you have when the intent passed by the, you know, the agent, because it's not deterministic. The agent is doing it at a probabilistic using LLM. Sometimes it might not have the sufficient things. And so your implementation must have the kind of gatekeepers. And then after that is, of course, the middleware and the security boundary, which is basically whenever now after the hook, after the agent has now done something, when it's coming and providing, trying to edit, you know, different files and all, or delete this and delete that, you have to now do some kind of really security boundary. And basically your hook must enable that actually the LLM is doing only, or edits are only done to enforce, you know, that architectural, basically to enforce formal boundaries. So that means the agent is not doing beyond the intent that was described. So that's basically the autonomous kind of recovery, as well as scope enforcement will happen before writing, before accepting. So the hook is kind of accepting whether the change by the LLM and the agent actually corresponds to the proper kind of correlation between the intent and the code. And that's kind of a verification loop. And then that way, basically, then if that is passed, great. Then it goes into the phase 3, which is basically you materialize and write and update the state files, as well as also the kind of let's say the intent. Now the intent has been now implemented. The intent has moved from where it was to now a new intent. So that is basically documentation has been updated, all of that, and then done. And another element you have to know is that you have to think about also the single agent doing it versus multiple agents doing it. So because that's kind of you know, important, like you have to understand about concurrency and also learning from multiple agents doing some things, so that multiple agents can actually learn from each other. So this one is basically another layer you have to think. This is again the mentality where, you know, AI is not one. You know, we are going to be commanding multiple AI agents doing the same things, you know, doing parallelly progressing and basically implementing things. So this is an important section as well. Okay, so once you do that, so this is good, like as a final kind of demoing what you want to do, you know, wherever you are, you will basically record yourself. But if you have implemented all of them, you basically should demonstrate something like this. You know, this is more of like an ideal, you know, an ideal outcome. So it's in principle, you can take it that way, that open a fresh workspace, define active intents, and then kind of actually then ask it to implement something, then open another, you know, 2 tabs, 2 instances, run with 2 multiple agents, and kind of like demonstrate that the trace is kind of captures that, and then the guard layers work as well for that. You know, so this is just, let's say, finally, if you succeed, that would be great. And the deliverables are, there's going to be 2. The interim submission normally happens on Wednesday, 21-hour UTC. I think follow that if there's any change, and the notification. And there's going to be the PDF report on your understanding of the extension, the agent, the extension uses, its structure, architecture, framework it uses, and all other features that it has, and also diagrams and schemas of your hook system. So by Wednesday, you know, expect something like that. You have created some things so that you can report it. And then also, if you are implementing these things, some of like basically the source code, the Git repository, the link you actually then also submit. In the final is basically simple. the complete PDF report, the audio, and then also a GitHub link, repository link that contains all of, let's say, after you run something, it actually demonstrates these ones. So it has the intent map, active intent, agent traces, so that we will be able to actually look into that. Okay, and we will be evaluating you mostly for this understanding, as well as also, kind of context. We might evolve it, so it's not kind of predefined. We are not saying, well, this is exactly what we want. I think this one is just a kind of an indicator. These are the type of, we will be notifying you as we finalize this, but it's more of that. It gives you the important places: intent, AST correlation, context engineering, how you kind of construct your context history, and the hook architecture, as well as the orchestration when you have like multiple agents, are kind of the topics of the evaluation, or the metrics, the criterias. Okay, that's it. That's it. Like, so I know it's exciting. I know it's difficult, but we're not doing it. We are just thinking. We are evolving. We are becoming a global citizen because we can, because we believe that everybody here is talented. Tomorrow they can lead OpenAI or another company. So it's important to work on what we aspire, not just toy models. So whatever we'll achieve, give it your best, and that's all that is. So yeah, but if there are any questions that are not clear, please let's know. Yeah, Johannes.
Okay, thank you for your wonderful presentation. So my question is, do we have to activate the MCP sense, 10x MCP sense, so that?
Yes, it would be very useful, but we know that, I think we have understood that you will be working, of course, in different places. So as before, we ask you to, like, whatever you can, you will add on your GitHub in the usual dot chats, ID chat history, as well as also MCP sense if you are working on that. I think we should be able to see more detail to give you more feedback, as also to kind of grade more. So yeah, so you should activate it always throughout the training.
Okay.
And any comment is welcome, including how you feel, whether you feel overwhelmed. I think, as I said, you are a coworker. I am not treating you as a trainee, as a student. So ensure that you also treat us equal, in a sense that we are a coworker. So that means responsibilities both sides. Okay, that does it.
So my question is, how do you advise we approach the problem? Because over the weekend, I was building a personal portfolio using GitHub's SpeakKit.
Yeah.
And I achieved the SDD, TDD, CI/CD, and proper deployment too. But
Yeah.
I noticed that whenever my specifications weren't clear, the output wasn't clear too. So it made me realize that research and clarity are more important than the actual code. So
very true. So Boris was, Boris is one of, if you learn in one of the refers, plan first approach, right? So given that LLMs are literal minded, so they may be good. Some are good, some are less good, but all of them are they have one property. They are literal minded. And that means if there is no clarity, they fill the gap, and then they're filling the gap. They might be very bad at it. So yes, it's very true. So in this case, really, I would say there's more complexity. I would say if you can demonstrate understanding, appreciation to the problem first, like really the evolving nature of this thing, and that it is not about like, okay, task only, I do this, but really appreciating and learning. As I said, you are now expected to think a lot more and to understand. And that really requires a lot of conversation, a lot of like that, because once you have a clear understanding, implementing it's not you. The AI will implement. You have the right environment, You basically just in one day, if you have the clarity, in one day you do it. Not in one day, in 1 hour. Not in 1 hour, maybe in 10 minutes. So it's really, the point is that exactly as you said, it's that clarity, understanding, thinking, and making sure that you're not just typing only to a LLM without any understanding. And that basically becomes a loop, and then you waste your tokens and stuff. So that clarity and considering yourself like a coworker at, of Boris is important. A coworker of, Abdul Hamid and me here, and anyone, the tutors, are exactly what we want you. We want to think, we want to find high quality thinking in a sense, like, we know you're not experienced. We know you cannot articulate it the same as I am articulating it now, but try, because the stakes are high. It's not about anymore doing. With a certain clarity, you can do a lot more. You can build the next big things because you have clarity. So yeah, I think approach exactly in the way that you said, it isn't only structure, it is really about owning ownership, owning the product, and owning that you will do it. You are a coworker. This is your responsibility as much as it's my responsibility. It's not a task. And with that mentality and attitude, if you approach it, you will find the right way. If not today, the next project. If not the next project. But you're guaranteed by the end, you will come out to become top in the world, right? That's why when we introduced it, we call it the 1% AI engineer, not just the AI engineer. So anyone is an AI engineer, but the 1% AI engineer is very different. So that means really ask, be helpful, make sure that you really participate. It isn't, complacency will not get you there. It's not anymore you doing it. It's really finding that clarity. So yes, that is it. Yes, it's clarity. Approach it with clarity, understanding, and then once that you have that, exactly, you can implement it with, anywhere, with number of agents. So yeah. Johannes?
Okay, thank you so much. So my question is, it's not a question actually. I'm asking for a suggestion. How much time do you suggest we spend researching? Because I'm kind of asking what kind of time is appropriate.
Yeah, so that's why Wednesday we gave you like a kind of a framework, a way to think what you should be achieving by Wednesday. So by Wednesday, you have the research done, you have decided the schema, even if it's a poor one, but you have decided most of the things, and you have already understood where to implement. So that's kind of a milestone-based thinking. And then 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 you will have sufficient time to implement your clarity and plan. So if you have and then you can have a more detailed milestone for yourself, but it gives you an idea, and that one. And also we have done lots of research, and we gave you a research document actually as well together with this. That will really help. It has references and all that. So hopefully when you read that, you got also clarity, and then the Slack and stuff. So yeah, by Wednesday, you have a sufficient understanding of the code base, how the client or room agents work, where the features and all that, and also you have clarity about your architecture, how you implement it, the problem, and all of that. And then from Thursday to Saturday, you will have sufficient time to implement. So even in between now then, also you're testing, doing something while you're understanding. But I would say, if you have finished all of the thinking, all of the design, all of the experiment, kind of, not all, but let's say you have something by Wednesday evening, then you have, this gives you a good, let's say, a good milestone.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, I'm seeing a few people are asking a lot, which is great, and I'm very happy. And they're most likely, you can learn, even if you don't ask now, you should really ask them, how did you come up with that question? Because the thing is, either right now, there is so many ways. I don't want anyone to be passive listener. So that means passive listener means they're just listening. They're not thinking. They're basically recording. For that, you could have just recorded something. I want you to start. I know it doesn't come naturally in one day, but I want you to strive always to be active tomorrow. If not tomorrow, the day after, the day after. Active listeners will always generate, okay, what happened? Or they're already maybe interacting. They've listened this one. They've already interacted with another Gemini or ChatGPT, and they are asking ChatGPT, what is actually not clear? Where is the gap? Like, how do you understand and what's the gap? If you were me, like, what kind of questions would you ask first? You're active, you're not really passively just listening. At any time you're active. And not every day you can be active, but strive. We are the selected, the elite, and we have sufficient support, but only together we can make it, because we don't have, the resources as much. Our resources are your minds, your questions, and your basically motivations. So hopefully, I'm not gonna force everyone but over time, I wanna see active environment. I know online doesn't help, but try. Yeah. Anyone else? Any question? If not, and if everything is clear, great. So Surafe.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hello? Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. With regards to the challenge, I mean, I do have like a couple of questions, but I think it will be cleared up if I just review the doc and watch the recording once more. I just wanted to ask some questions regarding like if we could have some sort of like curriculum overview, just to see like what we've seen so far and like what the road ahead looks like.
Yep. Thanks. We would try, but as I said, it's a very fast moving. So that means we are finishing. We just finished. We know what we are training, so we can give you a breakdown. We have like an overview, but the actual details, we are filling them as we go. Learning and understanding how the industry responds to different types of jobs. But yes, that was a good question. We'll give you an idea what in each weeks are kind of coming. So
Okay.
just a simple idea is that this week you're kind of building extension. The next week you will be more. I forgot. I will refresh my mind. But the third week, for example, you will be building Suno, like the Suno studio. Basically, you're reconstructing the Suno studio for like being able to signal analysis. So a lot more you will be doing signal analysis. And then I think next week is a lot more maybe MCP server designs and things like that. So I will have to refresh like the document. I don't have it right now with me. But yeah, we'll give you that kind of, let's say, roadmap, what's coming. And all of them, there's going to be machine learning, there's going to be data engineering, and there's going to be software development as well. But it's all just AI, right? So, and you will have really lots of signal analysis, you will have document parsing and kind of data science, machine learning approach. So you will build, how to query, automatic query, SQL and stuff, but with a more sophisticated agents. Yeah, I think next week is maybe agents and MCPs, so that you might build using what's called fast lang graph you will be building. So yeah, as I said, we have certain roadmap. We will share with that one, and basically, but the concepts are like, you will learn about some things from an existing system. You will build some of them for a particular problems, and they target not only just writing codes, but also understanding statistics, understanding, basically data engineering as well, and machine learning engineering as well. Yeah, hopefully that gives you an idea.
Yeah,
that
that answered my question. But one more thing that I'd like to ask is regarding like the assignments that we've had so far. How are like assessments being done? I know there's a lot of people submitting, and there's a lot of people with detailed notes, some AI stuff as well. Like, but do you guys do personal assessments? And or you don't have time, and how do you handle that?
Yeah. So two things. I think maybe we'll have a seminar on that, or a seminar or a talk that Abdul Hamid probably will give. He has designed it. The short answer is that we have agents that do all of that, and then the verification loop. That basically we actually verify, the tutors will verify, and we have like a number of these things. So basically, each rubric is like kind of the agent takes a look, collects evidence from your work accordingly, and then kind of presents that evidence, and then kind of that translates into some grading. So yeah, we'll give you more overview on that as we go on. And then we have also a human verification as well. And for some things, videos, we actually watch them. Like even if we have a system that actually grades these things, and we have a system that actually we can ask you to, talk to our agents to be able to explain your work so that the agents can actually understand what you have done. We will do that, but also almost always we have a human in the loop system. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. At such a scale, we don't, that's why you have, your grades are returned normally in kind of sometimes in minutes, depending on the queues, the size of the queue, sometimes in an hour or so. But yeah, as you'll all see, it's not just a human sitting and grading only, but verifications. So they always become draft, and then after human verification, they become actual. Okay. Yeah, Efrata.
Okay, hello everyone.
Hi.
So before I start, I just want to say this was a nice presentation.
Thank you.
I have like a couple of questions. The first one is, what are the foundation skills that are required for us to move forward? Because you mentioned that there's no like solid roadmap to go through, but like we need some sort of like courses or foundational skills. So say I came from a software engineering background, so I have a programming and other solid skills, but what translates the best into this course going forward?
Yeah,
That's my first question.
Okay.
And my second question is, which extension or repo should we fork? Do you have a suggestion? Any particular repo?
Yeah. So from the second one, it's highlighted. It's a Roo. Roo code is one extension for VS Code. Klein, so the original is Klein, and then there's a lot more fork from it. Roo is one, which has a lot more, let's say, advanced features. If you want to keep just Klein, just start with Klein. Fork Klein to give it a name, call it Efrata, and then that's it. And then start from that. But also Kilo is another one, which is another fork of Roo. But basically that means like it's a second fork of Klein. And you can also do that. So I think that's already listed, so you can get it there. But your first question, to be really 100% is we filtered for exactly things we said. We filtered for if you are AI open-minded, so which means the way that you look at AI is not as a trade, but as a leverage, and that you really are excited to leverage that, irrespective of what happens in the future. We don't have control, and we're not going to be bothered about it. We will understand, we will follow the news, we will learn how to be, responsible, but our important is to leverage so that we can do and build something amazing for the people we will work with, or, for our own startups. So that's AI. We kind of put it as AI openness or AI open-mindedness. One. The other one is curiosity, that you are, so basically you have the prerequisites. So that means you can read code. We have verified that. So all that other prerequisites are there. But the most important that propels you and drives you is the things that we just said, repeated every time. Ownership. The FD has two things. That ownership. Ownership means you absolutely own what you work. You're not trained for build something. You're not. You are an owner to achieve like the outcome. So that's FD's two principles, only two principles. You own outcome, and basically anything that is that basically the outcome, if anything comes in front of you, that would inhibit you from achieving the outcome, you solve it. That's called, ownership and outcome becoming the two and one things. So AI open-mindedness would really allow you to see through, to that it's okay to not understand stuff, but you're excited. And then excitement, or like we have a name for it, is that inspired, or I forgot the name, but that part is a lot more curious, that you almost always that things will change, but not everything changes very fast. Some things fast, transient, which means some methods, models are transient. Some others would come and replace them. That's fine. But you're curious, you learn, you adapt, you evolve. But given that you have an outcome and an ownership, that's what you're trying to achieve. And so that mentality is what you will build while you build. And there's nothing difficult, because the AI has sufficient knowledge, experience, and skill. All you have to do is just upgrade yourself, be curious, learn, and understand how to leverage them, to the best. As I said, Boris is using 15 agents, and achieving 100% kind of code generation. He doesn't do anything else. That kind of achievement you're trying to do with that curiosity, and almost always learning that comes with the AI open-mindedness. And the other one is, of course, the hard work. So that means you put, AI doesn't really just make it simple. It makes it actually a lot more competent. Therefore, you now have to work a lot more. So that hard work is just not replacement. Now, that's really the prerequisite. Everything else, I think I would say it's less essential, because we believe with the combination of this and with what you have already, you will achieve it. So I am kind of really, you might be expecting to say, read this, read that. No, knowledge is zero. The value of knowledge is zero. The value of a skill is zero. So which means AI can do a lot more than you. So there isn't a skill that you will develop the skill is just that attitude, like their mindset, that like AI open-mindedness, that curiosity, that motivation and hard work is the new skill. And that ownership approach, which is again part of the mentality. That is all there is to be successful, in my understanding currently. And through that, just with that, you will achieve anything that can be achieved in the world using AI. So I hope that gives you some insight. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? So just maybe to put it in another context. So yeah, Frata, good. To put it in another context, the difference between now a 50-year and a person that has been developing for 50 years, so that means experienced so much for 50 years, and a person that just comes out of the university, it's going to be just a lot more their curiosity, their leverage, and their hard work. The skills, the experience the person has is a diminishing return now, if they don't have that. But on top of that experience, they have that, then it becomes, of course, valuable. But the most important part is that skill, experience, knowledge isn't anymore as big value as before, if you have the right other elements. It's a counterintuitive, because with what I just said, curiosity, AI open-mindedness, and hard work, you will have more experience. But you will have more experience of the new world. And so that means that more experience of the new world will give you cutting-edge advantage. So the new world means the AI leverage. So, of course, we are saying have experiences in the new world, and that will give you more, right? So it's kind of counterintuitive, but I'm sure you will figure it out. Okay. Again, if you have another question, Efrata, you can go on.
Yeah, I do have another question. So before I start with my question, let me reinforce what I've asked earlier. So these days, a lot of people are vibe coding, not understanding the basics. So that's causing a lot of problems. Codes are not being maintainable, right? So what I was asking earlier is that, like, some people we need, like, not just me, I'm not just speaking for myself, but I'm sure there are other people here that might need to have some foundational skills that are necessary. It could be writing code, knowing structures, because for AI to give you the best result, you need to know what to ask, and to know what to ask, you should know to, sorry, you should know the basics, at least the basics, and also have some sort of like you said, curiosity, but you need to know what to ask. So that's why I was
But I
asking
understand.
you.
But
So
I'm
are there
I'm
any
asking you.
courses that you would
I'm
like
asking you the back.
us to watch?
I'm asking you exactly back the question. I think you're right. What are you building now is to tackle those kind of problems. And so you will have, you will have, like, if you are curious and because you are curious and you are here, you will have now understanding of the basic, you'll figure it out. Like, this isn't hard. So the point you have to know is that it is a one-day task to know the basic. Knowledge has really reduced to zero. As long as you're curious, as long as you are aligned, you will know everything you want to know in a day. So it hasn't the usual old value. But if you don't have curiosity to know, then what you know now will expire tomorrow. So there isn't that much value in it. So it's a very moving ground. So anything you will know isn't that much useful as much as the way you will know it. Does that, I think that's how I understand the current phase, is that it isn't the knowledge you will have. It is how you acquire it. Maybe just if that doesn't explain, and ask it more, but my understanding, like, yes, you will, my premise is that you will know the basic because it's not that difficult, and that doesn't save you. But the way that you will know the basic, and then you will know the next basic, you will know the next things, is what really defines how knowledge is constructed these days. It means, like, knowledge in itself isn't much, but if you don't know it, you don't know it. It's called an asymmetry. If you don't know, you don't know. But if you know, it means nothing. But the mechanism you will know has the value, which means you will know more and more. You're curious, you're open-minded, and then you will kind of work hard. So those reinforce it, you will learn everything you want. So yeah, now go on. I think you have a follow-up question, as well as you can rephrase as well if something is.
No, I mean, it's fair enough. I understand your point. I get your point. So you're right about that. The reason I asked you this is because I've seen junior devs prompt and my prompt when I'm working on projects, and they're missing something. It's just they don't even know what they're missing. So it's like having a genie, but you don't know what to wish for. So that kind of problem.
Yeah. So I think the way that you will teach them is not for me to teach them how to prompt. You teach them how to grow. Like, in a way that it's exactly like, for me, for example, I'm probably highly experienced, but I don't consider that as an advantage. The only advantage I have is that I am curious, and I will learn, and I will figure it out. And if another junior comes in and they just are doing, bad stuff, but I believe if I then sense they are growing, they have the right mindset, I believe they can be better than me, tomorrow. So it's that attitude that I have now. So it is not the knowledge that you have that will save you. It's the knowledge you will have, you will acquire, or the mechanism you will acquire will save you. So yeah, like in that case, advise them, measure not what they know now, measure how they are going to be acquiring. Are they interested? Are they curious? Are they hard worker? If so, they will figure it out. It's not that, just, we all may believe that we know something, but it's not that difficult. In the past, it used to be hard. Now, if you want to do even quantum physics, choose one: rocket science. Just have interest and resilience and resource, maybe. like enough tokens.
Yeah, you're right about that. Thank you.
So anyone else? I am also just seeing a lot of people. I mean, I'm sure you're thinking, and great, but just sometimes think loudly, with us. And one of the things that I was so surprised, and I spoke to a lot of people, is that in our current batch, we have really amazing, smart women as well, a lot in number. And that was something that I'm proud of. So I hope to hear more voices of mix, everybody, not just selected. And I know that online, even if I am in your position, I know, even if I have lots of things I will not say, because it just takes, it's not a natural environment. But let's make it very simple so that it's it's easy. So just you can go out of your comfort zone sometimes and choose to do so at will. Okay, anything else? Any question? If not, I know I'm way over time, so I can stop. But any feeling, anyone wants to express any feeling, how they're feeling, 1%, and then we can close. Great for today. And we'll continue the conversation over Slack. So good luck. Yeah, just thanks, guys. Cheers, everyone.